Before we begin, tell us, what city and time are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. Now buckle up. The Grand Assembly Hall aboard the Star Cruiser Valiant Rise was filled with the low hum of various alien dialects. Bright, bioluminescent nameplates flickered with alien designations, dozens of species gathered in tense anticipation. The orientation briefing was mandatory for all military personnel joining the Coalition Defense Fleet, especially those assigned to cross-species squads. It was tradition. It was policy. It was protocol. And yet, as the seats filled one by one, a peculiar stir spread across the amphitheater. The murmurs grew sharper. Eye stalks pivoted. Chitinous plates clicked in agitation. Because one seat in the back, row K, seat 11, assigned to the only human recruit, was empty. Again hissed an Ilexian commander whose species resembled giant praying mantises covered in opalescent scales. Again the human skips the safety protocol session. Again he is permitted to disregard procedures. A Girthak war tactician, more stone than flesh, rumbled with a deep, tectonic growl. Regulations state all must attend. And yet, crooned a Sylvani diplomat, fingers flowing like liquid silver, command has already signed his exemption. Again, high above, a single red eye blinked to life. It belonged to Admiral Nokthal, a centuries-old Vrixarian who floated in a gravpod due to a lack of legs. He leaned toward the microphone and said with weary resignation, "Let the record show that human operative Marcus D. Voss is once again exempt from coalition-wide orientation." Murmurs turned into open arguments. Outrageous. He is reckless. He is mortal. But few knew the truth. Few remembered why humans, and only humans, were given the freedom to skip safety briefings. It wasn't arrogance. It wasn't favoritism. It was because the last time they were forced to attend, 3 species went extinct during the simulation. Marcus Voss wasn't trying to make a statement. He simply didn't need the briefing. Not because he was above it, but because everything in those protocols was designed after humans like him had broken them in field operations and somehow survived. In fact, the Coalition safety doctrine was built around human failure modes. Entire pages were written in response to things Marcus had done during a single skirmish on the ice moon Draxus 7, like biting through oxygen tubing to stop a depressurization feedback loop, or setting off a grenade in his own lap to destroy a leech-like parasite fused to his spine. They weren't best practices. They were human solutions, desperate, unhinged, effective. Back on Draxus 7, Voss had landed in the middle of a bioweapon testing zone gone critical. A Nulveran war strain had corrupted the air, turning it into a flesh-stripping mist. Most species would have gone catatonic, clawing their own skin off before collapsing. But Voss, gritting his teeth, sealed his own nostrils shut with melted armor plating and kept moving. Coalition records later filed the encounter as Operation Iron Blood. The advisory: do not emulate human survival logic. It is non-transferable. During one such briefing, decades ago they tried to force a human to attend. It was Ensign Dahlia Riker, fresh out of Earth's orbital academy, still green, still hopeful. She sat in a room full of alien recruits, listening to the same dull voice drone on about fire suppression gel, exit corridors, and life pod ejection sequencing. Everything was going fine, until the holographic display began to malfunction. The simulation was supposed to showcase a minor hull breach scenario, but someone had forgotten to adjust the parameters for species-specific panic responses. The moment Dahlia grabbed a plasma wrench and punched through a fire door manually to simulate an escape, the Ogrel warriors thought it was an act of aggression. The Sylvani trainees screamed. The Juther spilled acid in fear. The emergency override triggered, but it was too late. One of the species, the Floraxi, plant-based life forms, spontaneously combusted from extreme stress. That species no longer exists. Since then, humans are flagged as tactically unpredictable under simulation pressure. That's not a joke. It's in the manual. Marcus leaned back in the gym, watching his squadmates return from the briefing, wide-eyed and twitchy. A 12-foot-tall Extenar, with 7 arms dropped into the seat beside him, still panting. They showed the breach simulation again, he muttered. Let me guess, Marcus said. Nobody volunteered for the hull patch, they all froze. One of the new Arval recruits passed out, squealed something about incoming ghosts. Marcus chuckled and sipped from a protein pack. Better they learn it there than out here. The Centenar studied him. You do know, they built the new safety protocols around your old logs. Yeah, Marcus shrugged. So, you're the baseline. You are the safety briefing. Rumors spread across the fleet. Stories of humans bypassing atmosphere lockdowns, walking through high radiation zones, disabling bombs with chewing gum and stubbornness. In one legend, a human engineer survived a reactor meltdown by diving into coolant and manually triggering the release valve with his own femur after his leg got caught in the mechanism. Admirals dismissed it as exaggeration until the footage leaked. From that day on, any safety system that relied on human methods came with a warning label. Human-rated protocols. All non-human personnel must observe extreme caution when attempting replication. Humans had redefined what survivability meant. They weren't brave, they were desperate. Desperation makes you creative, and that terrified the galaxy. The hangar of the Valiant Rise echoed with the sound of heavy metal boots striking the Durasteel floor. Maintenance drones zipped between legs. Crew members of every known species ran final diagnostics on ships that looked more like floating cities than vessels. In the corner of the bay, leaning against a deactivated drop pod, Marcus Voss chewed absently on a chunk of protein bar, watching the latest batch of recruits try to configure their hazard gear. That's not the oxygen seal, he called across the floor to a panicked-looking Zelthan who had a helmet lodged backwards on its hexagonal head. You're suffocating yourself in reverse. The Zelthan gasped, spun the helmet 180 degrees, and sucked in a breath of purified air. Apologies, human Voss. Our anatomy. Yeah. No offense, but if your gear takes 5 minutes to figure out, it's not gonna help when a thermite burst floods the corridor. Another voice chimed in from behind, the thick, clattering tongue of a Drovian officer. We could design new escape suits. Marcus rolled his eyes. That's what the last 6 species said. They all died in under 3 minutes in a vacuum breach. How long would a human survive? Someone asked. Marcus shrugged. 30 seconds. Long enough to kick a door open, grab a dying crew member, and say a one-liner. There was silence. A few snorts. A few species stared in what looked like awe or fear. That was always the divide. Most aliens saw humans as 2 things, liabilities or last-ditch solutions. There was no in-between. 4 weeks into joint deployment, the newly formed squad received their first live call. Sector 9. A mining colony on the edge of the Proxith Expanse. Automated distress signal triggered, no further data. Protocol dictated full briefing, tactical map, threat assessment, atmospheric scan, biohazard prediction, chain of command alignment. Marcus Voss ignored all of it. He packed his gear, strapped a gravity blade to his thigh, and walked toward the hangar without saying a word. The rest of the team scrambled behind him, flustered. We haven't even received the hazard profile. An Anaran medic barked. That's because it doesn't matter, Marcus said calmly. You don't know what's down there. I don't need to. The crew exchanged worried glances. This was their first time on an active mission with a human, and this was how he operated. Marcus caught the hesitation in their eyes and sighed. Let me tell you something. Protocols are great, until the door melts, and a thing with 17 limbs is inside your armor. That doesn't make sense. A Jalian officer stammered. Marcus grinned. It will. The shuttle dropped them onto the colony's scorched surface. A ghost town. Burned out walls, scorch marks that pulsed with faint radiation. No signs of life. Until the screams started. Inside the primary dome, survivors were trapped beneath a collapsed fusion condenser. Toxic mist drifted from broken vents. The walls hissed like dying animals. Ventilation's toxic, someone said, consulting a scanner. Atmosphere unbreathable in under 90 seconds. Too late, Marcus muttered. already prying a panel off with his bare hands. He yanked a breathing filter from his belt and shoved it into his mouth. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. The squad stared. Nobody moved. "Stay back if you want. I'll get them." And he went. Inside the dome, the air stung like acid-soaked needles. Marcus blinked through tears, navigating by instinct and half-memories of structural layouts. He found the trapped miners, 2 humans, a Sylvani, and a Regen child, wedged beneath a Durasteel beam. With zero hesitation, Marcus wedged a gravity spike beneath the beam and activated the charge. Boom! The structure lifted just long enough for him to yank the survivors free. A chunk of metal tore across his shoulder, slicing through armor. He didn't flinch. He kept moving. Later, when the squad recovered the footage, it became required viewing for command trainees. The moment was filed under Exhibit 9, Why Human Pain Tolerance Renders Some Safety Measures Obsolete. They made it back to the shuttle just before the dome collapsed. The crew stood in silent disbelief. "You should be dead," whispered the Eneran medic. "Should be," Marcus agreed, slumping into a seat. "But I skipped the briefing." Weeks passed. The legend grew. Marcus became a myth not because he was invincible, but because he expected to suffer and just kept going. While others waited for instructions, humans improvised. Where others feared death, humans had grown up with it as background noise. There was no training for this, just Earth. It wasn't just Marcus anymore. Other humans across the fleet gained the same exemption. Pilot Laia Ramos once landed a failing dropship using only her knees, duct tape, and a prayer to a deity she didn't believe in. Engineer Tom Yu reverse-wired an alien power core mid-explosion and only lost 3 fingers. When asked why he didn't wait for the safety override, he replied, "Didn't have 6 minutes to die politely." Stories poured in. Command kept trying to codify it, turn chaos into protocol, but they couldn't, because every time they tried to simulate human instinct under pressure, the simulators caught fire. At the annual review summit, the Council of Biosafety and Tactical Resilience convened to discuss human risk factors. "This cannot continue," declared the Juxarian Prime. "They defy every measure of safety. They invent solutions by accident. They survived a reactor implosion by hugging it." Admiral Nokthal floated to the center of the chamber and raised one long chitinous limb. "We cannot teach humans," he said solemnly, "but we can learn from them." Back aboard the Valiant Rise, the new recruits were given an optional course, Surviving with a Human. It covered never follow them into a tunnel. If they say, "I have an idea," start praying. If they laugh mid-battle, run. If they stop laughing, you're already dead. The humans didn't write the course. Aliens did. One alien, an Aetheri scholar, ended the course with this quote, "Humans don't survive because they plan better. They survive because they expect not to, and act anyway." Marcus stood at the edge of the observation deck, looking out at a sea of stars. His arm was still in a sling, one eye bloodshot. He'd survived another insane mission. Again, behind him his squad quietly gathered. They weren't afraid anymore. Not of him. They just wanted to learn. "Teach us," the Zelthan asked softly, "not to skip safety, but to live without needing it." Marcus nodded. "Then here's rule 1. If it's stupid and it works, it wasn't stupid." The shipyard buzzed with activity as the Valiant Rise prepared for deployment to Quadrant Theta 9. This time, it wasn't a rescue mission. It was a retaliation strike. Marcus stood at the foot of the briefing room, arms crossed, silent, while the holographic interface buzzed above the table. Alien officers argued. Data flickered, and every projection screamed the same warning. Unknown enemy tech, adaptive, brutal, fast. Marcus, of course, wasn't listening. Not because he didn't care, but because he had already packed light. Just enough to survive. As the discussion hit a fever pitch, a Regen commander shouted, "This is suicide. We don't know what's waiting for us." Marcus finally looked up, eyes calm. "That's the thing. You're waiting for permission to survive. Humans don't." He walked out. Just like that, the command room fell silent, and for many of them, That moment was the first time they understood why humans were different. Not just reckless, not fearless, but resigned. Resigned to face death and still move forward. The valiant rise dropped out of FTL above the jungle planet Rakara, a lush world turned into a fortress by an enemy no one fully understood. The last 10 scouting vessels had vanished without a trace. Marcus volunteered to land first. The rest of the team stared at him. "You'll need backup," one officer insisted. "I'll need time," Marcus corrected, clicking his rifle into place. "If I scream, bring fire." He didn't smile. He was already gone. The jungle of Rakara was wrong. Not in the usual way, where alien life was weird or ugly or dangerous. No, this place felt like a trap. Too still, too symmetrical. Plants that moved a beat too late. Sound that echoed when it shouldn't. Marcus moved like he belonged there, as if Earth had trained him for jungles like this long before spaceflight existed. His steps were deliberate, boots silent, one hand always hovering near his blade. And then, the first body, half buried in a root system, an alien scout, no trauma, just empty, like something had drained the will to live. Marcus knelt beside the corpse, whispering something under his breath, and kept going. 10 clicks in, the jungle changed. Roots pulsed like veins, the sky shifted hues, trees leaned toward him like watchers, and then it spoke. Not words, not language, just pressure. On the inside of his skull, Marcus stopped, closed his eyes. He wasn't hearing it, he was feeling it. Whatever controlled Rakara, it didn't kill with claws or bullets. It killed with doubt, with fear, with guilt. Marcus breathed out. Not today, and like that, the pressure lessened, because the jungle made one mistake. It assumed Marcus didn't want to die. He did, he just wasn't going to make it easy. From orbit the team watched through Marcus's live feed. "It's in his head," someone muttered. "No, it's worse," said the medic. "It's in his soul." Down below, Marcus kept walking, and then, it showed itself. A creature, 20 feet tall, gliding instead of walking, made of light and shadow, wrapped in tentacles and translucent membranes. It didn't speak, it just appeared in front of him. Any other soldier would have panicked. Marcus cocked his head. "You the welcome party?" The being surged forward, and Marcus ran at it. Not away, at it. The impact lit up the canopy in a blue-white blast, and still, the camera held. The next image was Marcus, crawling out of the crater, laughing and bleeding. "Not bad," he said to no one. "But you'll need a bigger mind game." He didn't wait for the creature to reform. He was already moving toward the core. The jungle panicked. Trees began collapsing in sequence. Ground erupted. Screams, not his, filled the air. Whatever ran this place had never encountered a species that refused to yield, that welcomed madness, death, pain, hallucination, that thrived in it. Marcus reached the pulse core. It looked like a black heart suspended between tendrils, glowing with stolen energy. He placed one hand on it, whispered something in Earth English, and detonated the entire thing. The rescue team arrived 15 minutes later. Half the jungle was burning, the sky was bleeding light, and in the middle of it all stood Marcus Voss, missing an eye, burned across one side, and still upright. "Report," barked the commander. Marcus turned, grinning. "Jungle's a lie, burn it down." That became the report header. Subject burned down a sentient bio-environment with zero coordination, did not require support. Requested tacos. The file was sealed, but passed around like forbidden fruit, because now everyone wanted to know what made Earth's humans so unbreakable. Word spread fast. The Galactic Safety Commission met in emergency session. Debates raged, protocols rewritten, and by the end of the week, an official order was passed. All humans henceforth are exempt from standard fleet safety briefings. This is not out of negligence, but because they don't need them. That's when the envy started. Other species began requesting psychological modification. "Can you make us like them?" they begged. The answer every time: no, because being human wasn't a mutation, it wasn't software, it wasn't luck, it was millions of years of horror, of betrayal, of nuclear winters and trench warfare and broken empires and dying civilizations. It was history, and it had hardened them. Humans didn't ignore safety, they were the safety protocol. And Earth never asked to be part of the stars. But now that they were, the stars would never be the same. Marcus sat alone in the barracks, listening to old Earth jazz through a scratched headset. Outside, 100 species trained for danger they'd never fully understand. A young alien recruit approached, nervous. "Sir, how do you do it?" Marcus looked up, one eye still glazed, the other full of fire. "Do what?" "Survive without safety." Marcus took a breath, leaned forward. "Because we were never safe, not on Earth, not in space, not anywhere." He looked at the stars beyond the window, and we made peace with that a long time ago. What happens when you teach a species that survival is optional, fear is ornamental, and pain is just another form of memory? You get Earth-born. You get humans. And on the outer edge of the Void Rift Station, as the Galactic Fleet regrouped after a disastrous assault on the Tech Spire, only one name kept appearing in the post-battle debriefs: Marcus Voss. He didn't ask for medals. He didn't give interviews. He asked for socks. Dry ones. The command core at Void Rift was in chaos. Hundreds of different species trying to align combat protocols, analyze losses, and decipher why only the human squad survived with minimal casualties. General Tyrox, a Valtari of significant rank and ego, slammed a clawed hand into the table. It is impossible that one species alone outlasted the psionic cascade. Commander Kell of the Zalari blinked slowly. They didn't outlast it. They walked through it like it was rain. The silence that followed wasn't just disbelief, it was the beginning of reverence and fear. Because if the galaxy's most insidious weapons didn't work on humans, what else wouldn't? The review panel reassembled the field feeds. Every second of the human unit's advance was analyzed. The psionic cascade that tore apart shielding tech, ruptured the neural lattice of dozens of species, and even caused temporary blindness in artificial constructs, didn't even make the humans blink. Marcus was captured mid-feed, casually humming a 20th century Earth tune, stepping through the screaming storm like he was on a Sunday hike. One of his squadmates was laughing while their enemies screamed and clawed at their own minds. The file was flagged, cognitive resistance anomaly. A junior analyst whispered, "They weren't immune, they liked it." That theory would later be confirmed. Through interviews with survivors, through lab tests, through nightmare logs. Humans didn't skip safety briefings because they were exempt. They skipped them because the galaxy had nothing left to warn them about. Admiral Corrin, a veteran of 17 Starfront wars, demanded a one-on-one meeting with Marcus. Marcus arrived 10 minutes late, not because of arrogance, but because he was finishing a crossword puzzle. "You've caused a political shift," Corrin started. "Your behavior on Rakara, on Spire 9, and most recently, the Cascade breach, none of it follows protocol." Marcus sat, calm, neutral. Corrin continued, "You do understand that by disregarding briefings, you've undermined centuries of interspecies cooperation." Marcus raised an eyebrow. Didn't realize cooperation meant dying slower. Corrin's mandibles clicked in offense. "You think you're special." Marcus leaned forward. "I think we're trained by a planet that tried to kill us every day for 100,000 years. We eat stress. We flirt with extinction. You brief us on danger like it's breaking news. To us it's breakfast." He stood, nodding once. "Thanks for the concern, Admiral." Corrin didn't stop him. Couldn't. Because deep down, he knew. Marcus was right. The Galactic War escalated. New fronts opened. Civilizations toppled, and wherever the worst hells bloomed, humans were sent first. Not because they were expendable, but because the chaos made them better. They didn't just survive, they evolved in real time. A few alien historians began calling it the warrior bloom, a phenomenon where human performance increased the closer they came to death, and no species, not one, could replicate it. Even cloned humans, even trained ones. The real ones. They were made on Earth. The real ones were built by pain. No simulation could emulate. A turning point came at the siege of Lorthaxis Prime. An orbital shield array fell, leaving 900,000 troops exposed to a planet-spanning bio-horror wave. The response time from command was 10 minutes. The human battalion responded in 2. They didn't wait for strategy, positioning, or clearance. They ran into the storm. Out of 312 soldiers, only 87 made it out. Every single one of them carried someone else. And that night, in the Tri-Council Emergency Summit, Protocol Zeta X was unanimously passed. Effective immediately, human combatants are not required to attend safety briefings, survival training, or evacuation drills. Their default setting is survival. Their instincts are superior to algorithms. That declaration was classified, of course, but the ripple it caused, it changed doctrine forever. Not everyone was happy. A few species pushed back, claimed it was favoritism. One even called humans reckless beasts hiding behind narrative armor. So they ran a test. 6 elite troops from 6 worlds, 1 survival scenario. All briefed, all prepped, all armed equally. And Marcus, he showed up last, with a lunch bag. By hour 4, 5 were down. 1 was hallucinating. Marcus was eating trail mix and singing to himself. When they pulled him out, he shrugged. "I didn't survive this," he said. "This survived me." Earth itself became a training ground. Other species started requesting tours. Not diplomatic ones, survival immersions. They wanted to understand the crucible that forged this madness. They wanted to know what made humans laugh at doom. The Earth government was hesitant, until Marcus himself intervened. "Let them come," he said. "Let them see." The first cohort lasted 12 hours. Second group, 2 days. Only 1 species ever made it through the full 2-week Arctic core gauntlet. They were never the same. One survivor was quoted as saying, "I didn't meet death. I shared a tent with it." By 2451 Galactic Time, a new division of the Interstellar Warfare Council was formed, unofficially called the Human Buffer. They were deployed before AI, before fleets, before hope. Wherever logic failed, humans were the last irrational variable. And Marcus, he became legend. But he hated statues. He hated stories. He liked coffee, black, no sugar, and silence. Because what the galaxy called heroism, he called necessity. And the thing about humans, they don't think they're special. They think everyone else forgot how to survive. In his final field mission, Marcus encountered something new. A creature from outside known physics. It didn't fight. It undid reality. Ships fell apart. Gravity bent. Memories evaporated. He stood alone. Rifle useless. Tech dead. And then, he spoke. Not to it. To the darkness. "I've been to hell. You're just a detour." And the thing blinked out of existence. Not because it was destroyed. Because it gave up. It could not comprehend a species that embraced oblivion with open arms. The logs say Marcus simply walked back to camp, sat down, drank coffee. He retired after that, moved to a station near the edge of the galactic map, quiet, cold, perfect. But stories of him never stopped. Children from alien worlds whispered of the man who defied briefings. War colleges taught the Voss method. And fleets began leaving empty seats in planning rooms, marked only by boots, human boots. As a reminder, you can't plan for madness. You can only pray it's on your side. So the next time someone asks, "Why do humans skip the safety briefings?" don't mock them. Don't envy them. Just understand, humans are the briefing. Their lives, their trauma, their laughter during combat, their stubborn refusal to die, all of it is the protocol the galaxy never knew it needed. And Marcus, he died decades later, in his sleep, at peace. But his boots still sit by the airlock, just in case. If this story left you stunned or proud to be human, don't forget to comment where you're watching from. What time is it? What city? What part of the world? Smash that like button, share it with your battle-hardened friends, and subscribe if you believe Earth doesn't raise cowards. Because here, on this channel, we don't just tell stories. We remind the stars who we are.